Learning Comfy UI is like opening a technical book at the last page. Everything is there, but nothing makes sense yet. This course starts from page 1. Before we go any further, I want to be very clear about how this course works. This is not a shortcuts course. It is not about copying workflows without understanding them. Each chapter builds on the previous one. We start simple, repeat the important ideas, and only add complexity when it actually makes sense. You do not need any coding knowledge. You do not need to be technical. If you can think visually, you can learn Comfy UI. If you want to understand how AI image generation really works locally and how to use Comfy UI without feeling lost, this course is for you. My name is Pixaroma, and on this channel I focus on creating and teaching Comfy UI workflows in a simple and practical way. I am a graphic designer, not a programmer, and that is actually a good thing. Developers are great at writing code, but they often explain things in a very technical way. This course is designed from a visual thinker's perspective. My goal is to explain Comfy UI logically and visually, without needing any coding knowledge. Even if Comfy UI looks confusing right now, that is completely normal. We will start from the absolute basics and build up step by step. But before we talk about Comfy UI itself, we first need to understand what AI image generation actually is. Today, AI is not just one thing. There are many different AI models that can run locally on your own computer, such as Stable Diffusion, Flux, Qwen, and many others. It is also important to understand that Comfy UI is not limited to image generation. Comfy UI is a general interface for running many different types of AI models locally. While it is most popular for image generation, it can also be used for audio, music, video, animation, 3D, and more. As long as a model can be connected through nodes, Comfy UI can be used as the interface to control it. These models by themselves are like an engine. They are very powerful, but you cannot really use them directly. To work with them, we need an interface. An interface is what allows us to send prompts, images, and settings to the model, and then receive results back. There are many free interfaces that let us interact with these models. Some popular ones are Forge UI, Swarm UI, Invoke, Focus, and of course, Comfy UI. They often use similar models, but they work in very different ways. In this course, we are going to focus on Comfy UI. Comfy UI is different because it is node-based. Instead of hiding everything behind buttons and menus, it shows you exactly what is happening step by step. You can see how prompts, models, samplers, and images are connected together, like building a system. Think of it like this. The AI model is the brain. The interface is how you talk to that brain. Comfy UI is like building your own control panel, exactly the way you want. Do not worry if this still feels complex. Understanding comes from seeing things connect, not from memorizing nodes. In this course, I will explain what each node does, why it exists, and how everything connects together. Before we install anything, we need to talk about how you will actually run Comfy UI. There is more than one way to use Comfy UI, and the right choice depends on your system and your expectations. Let's go to the official Comfy UI website to see the available options. The official website is comfy.org. If we go to the Products section, you can see that there are two main options, Comfy UI Cloud and Local Comfy UI. Comfy UI Cloud runs online on their servers, and it is a paid service. This option can be useful if your computer is too old or not powerful enough to run AI models locally. Local Comfy UI is free and runs directly on your own computer, assuming you have a reasonably capable system. This is the option we will focus on in this course. So let's click on Local Comfy UI. Here you can see three main installation options: download for Windows, for macOS, and install from GitHub. All of these options install Comfy UI, but there are important differences between them. In this course, I will focus on Windows operating system using the portable version of Comfy UI. All the workflows, tools, and installers I show are tested on Windows using an NVIDIA graphics card. On AMD graphics cards and on macOS, performance is usually slower, and some features or custom nodes may not work exactly the same way. So if you are using Windows with an NVIDIA card, it will be much easier to follow this course step by step as I show it. Because there are many different AI models, hardware requirements can vary a lot. Some models are small and can run on a graphics card with 6 to 8 gigabytes of VRAM. Other models are much larger and may require more than 24 gigabytes of VRAM. For this first episode, I tested the workflows on two different systems. One system uses an RTX 2060 with 6 gigabytes of VRAM and 64 gigabytes of system RAM. The second system uses an RTX 4090 with 24 gigabytes of VRAM and 128 gigabytes of system RAM. For the workflows in this episode, a graphics card with 6 to 8 gigabytes of VRAM should be enough to follow along. In later episode, we will explore newer and larger models that may require more powerful hardware. Now let's talk about which version of Comfy UI you should install. As I mentioned earlier, I am using the portable version of Comfy UI. If we click on Install from GitHub, we are taken to the official Comfy UI GitHub page. Here you can find detailed installation instructions, but they require more manual steps and setup. Over the past year, I have been using a portable version of Comfy UI that includes additional tools to make the installation process much easier. This installer installs the original Comfy UI, but it also adds helpful tools so you can get up and running much faster. This installer is called Comfy UI Easy Install. You can find it on this GitHub page. You can find the creator on our Discord community under username Ivo. Thank Ivo for this installer. This entire course is built around this version of Comfy UI. You can still use Comfy UI Desktop or Comfy UI Cloud, but some things may look different or behave differently compared to what you see in this course. If you want the exact same setup that I use and the easiest way to follow along, I recommend using the same version. Let me show you how to install Comfy UI. So we are on the Easy Install GitHub page. This is the complete link. If we scroll down, you can read more about this installer. Even if you might not understand what each of these things means yet, it will make sense later as you learn more about it. I will talk later about the Pixaroma Discord server, where you can get more help and answers to your questions. So this installer will install Git, which is a tool that tracks changes to files. In Comfy UI, it helps developers safely update the main app and custom nodes, fix bugs without breaking everything, and lets you update or roll back to an earlier working version if a new update causes problems. Then it will install the Comfy UI portable version. A portable version means the program is fully self-contained in one folder, does not need a normal system install, and can be run, moved, backed up, or deleted without affecting the rest of your computer. In Comfy UI Portable, this means Python, libraries, models, and settings all live inside the Comfy UI folder, so you can copy it to another drive or PC, update it safely, and avoid breaking your system Python or Windows setup. Python Embedded means Comfy UI comes with its own built-in copy of Python already included inside the Comfy UI folder, instead of using the Python installed on your system. Then it will install all the nodes that are useful and that I tested over the last year. It might not make sense for you yet if you are a beginner, but do not worry. Take it as general knowledge for now, and it will make sense later. Then it will add an add-ons folder with more advanced stuff we can use later to speed up our generation, plus some extra tools that can be useful, and then more technical stuff explained for each one. But all you need to know for now is where to download it from and how to run the installer. It is important not to run it as administrator. That means you just double-click to run it, not right-click and run as administrator, but you will see that in a minute. Also, avoid system folders, and make sure your NVIDIA drivers are up to date, since some things work only with more recent NVIDIA drivers. Okay, let us go back to where it says Windows Installation, and let us download the latest release from here. Then, depending on how your browser is configured, it will either download it to the Downloads folder or ask you where to download it, and you can decide where to put it. As you will see over time, it needs a lot of space if you download big models, so I suggest downloading and installing your Comfy UI on a hard disk that has a lot of free space, and preferably on a solid-state drive, because it will load the models faster. I will go to my D drive, and I will create a new folder called Comfy UI, but this does not really matter. The name can be anything easy to remember. Sometimes I put Comfy UI followed by the month, so I know when I downloaded and installed it. So I will save this zip archive in that Comfy UI folder. Now let us go to the place where we saved the file. Since this is a zip archive, we need to unzip it. You right-click on it, and depending on what you prefer, you can use the Windows Integrated option and select Extract All. I like to delete the folder name at the end, so I do not end up with a folder inside another folder. When I click Extract, it will extract these two files. Let me delete it really quick and show you. If you have WinRAR like me, you just choose Extract here, and it does the same thing. Once we extracted everything, you can delete the easy install zip file. Now we are left with two files, a BAT file that is the installer, and a zip file that contains extra resources that it will use. When you run it, you might get a security warning. That usually happens with BAT or executable files because they install files on your system. This one is safe. I installed and tested it, and I personally know Evo, the creator of this installer. You can right-click and scan it with your antivirus, and you will see it is clean. So let us double-click on the BAT file, then press Run, and it will start installing. If you already have Git installed, it will update it. If not, you will get a window like this, and you have to press Yes to continue the installation. After that, it will continue the installation of Comfy UI and everything it needs to run. You can take a break for 3 to 5 minutes, depending on your internet speed and your computer. So how do you know when it is ready? You will see a message that says Installation Complete, along with the time it took. On my PC, it took 247 seconds. After that, you can press any key to exit. So let us recap really quick. From the GitHub page, you download the zip archive of the Easy installer. You create a folder named Comfy UI and place the downloaded zip archive in that folder. You extract the contents of the archive. You run the Comfy UI Easy Install BAT file, and if it asks to run GitHub, you press Yes. In a few minutes, the installation is complete, and you get this screen. Now after the installation, we can see that inside our Comfy UI folder, a new folder appeared called Comfy UI Easy Install. This is portable, which means you can copy this entire folder and move it to a different drive or folder, and it will still run Comfy UI. Basically, after you install any Comfy UI portable version, you should end up with a similar folder structure to this. Since Comfy UI is based on the Python programming language, you will see many Python files and BAT files inside these folders, which are used to run those Python files. The Easy installer will also create some shortcuts on your desktop. If you use other versions of Comfy UI, they might not do this, and you would need to create the shortcuts manually. That is one of the reasons I prefer the Easy installer. It makes everything easier for us. Basically, we just extracted an archive and ran a BAT file, and we now have Comfy UI. If we right-click on this shortcut and go to Properties, we can see the target of the shortcut. If we open the file location, you can see that it is connected to this BAT file that starts Comfy UI. In other versions of Comfy UI, the name might be different, like Run NVIDIA GPU or something similar. Are you ready for your first Comfy UI launch? To start Comfy UI, you either use this BAT file called Start Comfy UI, or from the desktop you use this shortcut called Comfy UI Easy Installer. E and Z stand for Easy, and I stands for Installer. So double-click on it, and when it starts, it looks like this. The first time it will be a little slower, but after that it will start much faster. If you are curious by nature, you can find all kinds of information about your Comfy UI and your system when it runs. For example, you can see what operating system I am using, what Python version is running and where that Python is located, what the path to the Comfy UI folder is, where the user directory is, how much VRAM you have, how much system RAM you have, and the PyTorch and CUDA versions that are running. When it starts, this command window will be minimized to your taskbar, and Comfy UI will open in your default browser. The first time it opens, it will show you some templates made by Comfy UI that you can load. If you have run a workflow before, it will open that workflow by default. So the workflow you see open is the last one you used. A workflow is a set of connected nodes that tells Comfy UI what to do, step by step. Let us close this for now. You can open these templates or workflows from here later. Comfy UI is made of a few main areas. You do not need to memorize them. I am naming them so we can talk about the same things later. If we go to the top, you can see it says unsaved workflow. Basically, it is like a document that is empty at the moment, since we did not add any nodes yet. You can have multiple documents open, similar to what we have in Photoshop and other programs. We can click on this plus icon to create a new blank workflow. All these tabs on top are open workflows, and we can close, save, and edit each one. Now, this grid, like empty space, is called the canvas. Instead of drawing on it, we will arrange blocks or nodes, like using Lego pieces, and connect things together to create a working workflow. You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out on the canvas. Then we have this top bar. Depending on what extensions you have installed, it might look different and have more options. Things like the manager or the run button, which lets us run workflows, are usually here. On the bottom right, we have view controls. For example, we have a select tool that lets us select nodes, and a hand tool that lets us navigate the canvas. You can fit a workflow in view, but right now the canvas is empty. We also have different zoom controls that you can use if you do not want to use the mouse wheel, or if you do not have one. For me, the mouse wheel is the fastest and the one I prefer. Then we have the Show Minimap option. This shows a small map that we can use to navigate when we have very large workflows. There is also Hide Links, but since we do not have any nodes or links yet, we will see that later. An important one is the main menu, which you open by clicking on the letter C, the Comfy UI logo. We also have more options on the left sidebar for nodes, models, and workflows, which we will explore soon. Back to the main menu. If we click on the C, we get this menu. New creates a new workflow, but it is faster to use the plus sign from the top bar. For File, it allows us to open, save, and export the workflows we create. For Edit, you can undo actions like moving nodes or changing something in the workflow, clear the workflow, and unload models. For View, we can enable and disable different panels, and we also have zoom in and zoom out controls. Just like in Photoshop, we can do the same things in multiple ways. It is the same with Comfy UI. For Theme, you can change how it looks, but at the beginning, I suggest leaving it on default so it is easier to follow tutorials. Nodes 2 is in beta at the moment of this recording and still has some bugs, so I suggest leaving it off until it is more stable. You can browse templates and open settings, which we can explore later. For now, the default settings work fine. Templates and settings can also be accessed from here, so again, there are multiple ways to access the same things. In some newer versions, some people might use a newer manager, and it might appear somewhere else instead of here. For now, I am using the old manager, which appears here. Under Help, you can also find help options, but you will see later in this video how to ask questions and get help. We also have a console, sometimes called the bottom panel, where you can see exactly what has happened since we opened Comfy UI. If we look at the taskbar and open the command window from there, it shows the same information. One view is at the bottom, and the other is in the taskbar. To close Comfy UI, I recommend opening the command window from the taskbar and closing it. You will then see a reconnecting message in the browser because it cannot find Comfy UI running anymore. After that, you can close the browser window. You can also close the browser window first and then close the command window. It is time to test our first ready-made workflow. Later, I will explain in detail what nodes are and what they do. So let us start Comfy UI, wait for it to finish loading, and get the interface. To open a workflow, you have different options. You can drag a workflow directly onto the canvas, or you can go to the menu, then File, and choose Open. All workflows for Comfy UI have the extension .json. JSON means JavaScript Object Notation. It is a simple text format used to store and share data in a way that both humans and computers can easily read. In Comfy UI, JSON is important because workflows are saved as .json files. These files store all your nodes, connections, settings, and prompts so you can reload, share, or edit a workflow later. I will include these workflows for free on Discord for those who use a different Comfy UI version. For example, I can open this first workflow, and you can see that it opens with all the nodes and links ready to be used. You can use your mouse wheel to zoom in and out to see the entire workflow. You can click outside the nodes, somewhere on the canvas, and drag to move around. You can also use this hand tool, which I personally never use. With the hand tool, you can pan around the canvas. With the normal mouse cursor, you can select nodes and move them around. We will talk more about that later. Now we have the workflow open in this tab, and you can see its name at the top. With the X button, you can close the workflow and go back to a new empty one. If we go to the sidebar and click on Workflows, I can open this folder called Getting Started, which I prepared for you for this episode. Only the Easy installer comes with these workflows, so if you are using a different version, you can get the workflows from Discord. You can also make the sidebar wider if you want to see the full text. I added a few workflows here to test in this episode. This one is just a help file with notes and useful information that we will use later in the video. Let us close it and open the one with number 1 in front, called Juggernaut Reborn. If I click on Workflows again, the sidebar collapses. Now let us move around using the mouse, left-click and drag to see it better. Each of these blocks is called a node. All nodes are connected to each other using links, those small cables that go from one node to another. Usually, a workflow is built from left to right. When you run a workflow, it processes from left to right. If something does not work or the workflow is broken, Comfy UI tells you where the problem is. Think of it like a car dashboard. If a door is open or a light bulb is not working, you get a warning icon. It is the same here. Errors look like this. It says prompt execution failed, and it also tells you something like value not in the list. These are some of the simplest errors to fix. It is like the car telling you a light bulb is missing. In Comfy UI, it means a specific value, object, or file could not be found. In our case, it could not find the checkpoint name, which is the model name, the brain as we called it. Comfy UI workflows include all the nodes and settings, basically the interface, but they do not include the models themselves. Those brain or engine files are not included. Since workflows are just JSON text files, they cannot include images or large files like models. In this node called Load Checkpoint, the checkpoint is just a model file, the brain we talked about. Even if I click here, I cannot select anything because it is not in the list. That means the model is not downloaded yet, or it is downloaded but placed in the wrong folder. Since I did not download any models yet, it is clear I do not have it. That is why when I share a workflow with you, I include a note that tells you exactly what you need to download for the workflow to work. Not everyone on the internet does this, but most good workflow creators do. The way I organize it is like this. I tell you where the model needs to be downloaded and which node loads it. It says Load Checkpoint, which is the node name, then it tells you the model name you need to download. There is a button that says Here, and then it tells you exactly which folder to place it in, and which folder to create if it does not exist. That is enough theory. Let us download the model. You already saw where it needs to be placed, but how do you find that folder? You need to find your Comfy UI folder. This depends on where you installed it, on which drive, and in which folder. You navigate until you find the Comfy UI folder. In our case, it is inside the Comfy UI Easy Install folder. If we go inside, we see many folders that Comfy UI needs to run. We have an output folder, where generated images are saved. We have an input folder, where input images are stored. We also have a models folder, where all downloaded models go. Inside the models folder, you can see many subfolders for different types of models. Over time, you will learn what each one is for. That is why I included the note, so you know exactly where to put the model without guessing. For this workflow, the model goes into the checkpoints folder. We could just save it directly there and it would work. But from my previous tutorials, I learned that over time you will download many models and it becomes hard to keep track of them. That is why I like to organize models in subfolders. In this case, I know this model is based on Stable Diffusion 1.5, so I will create an SD1.5 folder and place the model inside it. Now we wait for the model to download. Some models are a few gigabytes in size. After that, we go back to Comfy UI. You can see I placed the model exactly where the instructions said, so Comfy UI can recognize it. If Comfy UI was closed, reopening it would automatically detect the model. But since Comfy UI is already open, it will not see the new model yet. We need to refresh it. To do that, press the R key. You will see that the node definitions update. Now when I click here, I can see the model name and select it. Right now there is only one model, but later you will have a drop-down list with many options. Now the model is selected, and it is time to run the workflow again. By the way, you can move the Run button anywhere you want on the canvas using the small dots on its side. If you prefer it docked, you can dock it back to the top bar. Let us run it again and see if it works. Everything turns green. Each node runs from left to right, and no red nodes appear. That means the workflow ran successfully, and we generated our first image. The model we use in this chapter is quite old and small. Later, we will use smarter and more advanced models. For practice, this one is good enough because it is fast and can run on smaller computers that do not have a lot of VRAM. Each time I press Run, I get a new image because we have a random seed here. Do not worry about this yet, I will explain it later. So, now we can generate an image with Comfy UI, and all of this comes from a simple text called a prompt. Basically, we used a few nodes with specific settings and a model trained for this type of image generation. We can change the prompt, for example, photo of a cat, close up. Now when I run the workflow, I should get a cat. The more VRAM you have, the faster it will generate. We can see the generated images here, but they are also saved locally. If we look at the output folder, we have a shortcut to it on the desktop. Inside that folder, we can see all the images we generated so far. Let us go back to Comfy UI and close this workflow. I do not want to save it because I liked the prompts and settings it had before, so I choose No. Now we are left with an empty workflow, or you can click on the plus sign to create a new blank workflow. Before we move to the next chapter, I recommend taking a short break. Research shows that short pauses help your brain process and retain new information. Grab a coffee, get some water, or take a quick bathroom break, then come back and continue. This chapter is about understanding the building blocks of Comfy UI and how they connect to form a workflow. We are in Comfy UI, and we have this blank canvas and workflow. To add a node, you double-click on the canvas, and it will open a search box that lets you search for a node. For example, if I type the word load, it shows me load image, load checkpoint, and all kinds of nodes that let us load something. If we click on the load image node, it will be added to the workflow. The position where it is added depends on where you double-click on the canvas. You can also move it after. You just left-click on a node, hold the left mouse button, drag it to where you want it, and then release the button. To deselect a node, you just click anywhere on the empty canvas. For me, that is the fastest way to add a node, but there are other methods. For example, I can right-click on the canvas in an empty area and get this menu. From here, I can go to Add Node, then I see different categories. If I click on the image category, I can find the Load Image node. It is right here, and if I click on it, it gets added to the canvas. After that, you can move it and arrange it wherever you want. Another method is to use the node library in the left sidebar. Here, we have all these categories. If I click on the image category, I can see the Load Image node. This is a good option if you do not know exactly which node you are looking for. You can also search for a node here to filter the list, then add the node or drag it onto the canvas. Out of all these methods, my favorite is still the double-click on the canvas. Once a node is selected, you also have the option to delete it using this icon. You can also use the delete key or the backspace key to delete a node after you select it. The load image node is how we bring an existing image into Comfy UI so other nodes can work with it. Each node has a title at the top that tells you what it does. Below that, it has controls, inputs, and outputs that connect it to the rest of the workflow. Let us double-click on the canvas again and add another node. This time, I will search for crop, and we get this node called image crop. You can probably guess what it does. It crops the image that we loaded. You can change the image using this button and upload any image you want. If something goes into a node, it is called an input. If something comes out of a node, it is called an output. The load image node has two outputs, but no inputs, because the image comes directly from your computer, not from another node. The image crop node has one image input and one image output. It receives an image, modifies it, and then sends out a new image. If we left-click on one of the outputs from the load image node, we can drag a connection or a cable to the next node and connect it. Because the output and the input have the same color and the same name, it is easy to see that they belong together. In most cases, connections work between the same colors, and different colors usually do not connect. There are a few special cases, but we will talk about those later. Now, if I try to connect the green output, it does not connect. That is because the green output is a mask, and the input on this node expects an image, which is blue. In the beginning, this color system helps you quickly understand which nodes can be connected. If two nodes cannot connect, it usually means they are not meant to be connected. Sometimes you will also find nodes that act like adapters or converters. These nodes take one type of output and convert it into a different type so it can be used by another node. Now, basically, we have a workflow, but is the workflow complete? How can we test it? It is simple. We run it and see what message we get. In this case, it says the prompt has no output. Even if you do not understand exactly what that means yet, try to figure it out from the words. We do not have an output node, so let us close this message. If we look at the workflow, the image is loaded from the computer, then it goes into the image crop node, which crops the image. But after that, nothing happens. There is no output. Think of this like editing a photo in Photoshop. You load an image, crop it, but if you never save or export it, the work exists, but you do not get a file. In Comfy UI, the Save Image node is the export step. So let us double-click on the canvas again and search for Save. We have this Save Image node. We can see that the image output color matches, so we can connect it. Even if the label says Image or Images, it still works. Now let us make the connection. If we run the workflow, it will process from left to right. The image is loaded, cropped, and then saved in the output folder. We can also see it directly inside the Save Image node. All nodes can be resized using the corners. You will see small arrow indicators on the corners. You can click and drag to resize a node. In this case, I want to see the image preview bigger, so I resize the node. To remove a connection, you can left-click on the output dot, drag the cable out onto the canvas, and it will disconnect. You can also left-click on the small dot in the middle of the connection and choose Delete. You also have the option to add a reroute. A reroute is like an extension cable or a cable organizer. It does not change the data at all. It only helps you route connections more cleanly and keep your workflow readable. From that reroute node, you can add another link to another node if you want. You can also have multiple reroutes on the same link, so you can arrange nodes, links, and reroutes in a way that looks visually clean or helps you see faster which node connects to which node. This is very helpful when you have a lot of nodes in a workflow. To remove a reroute, you just select it and press the Delete key. Let me arrange them and remove all links so we can see it better. So, in Comfy UI, we have different types of nodes. First, we have nodes that only have outputs. These nodes usually load something from outside Comfy UI, like a file or some text. In this case, the Load Image node loads an image from your computer, so it does not need any inputs, only outputs. Then we have nodes that have both inputs and outputs. These nodes are usually placed in the middle of a workflow. They receive something from one node, process it, and then pass the result to the next node. Finally, we have nodes that usually sit at the end of a workflow. These nodes only have inputs, and their job is to show or save the result, for example by previewing an image or saving it to disk. There are also nodes that do not have any inputs or outputs at all. For example, if I search for a note node and add it to the canvas, you can see that it is only informational. These nodes are used to write notes and make workflows easier to understand and remember. They do not affect the workflow at all and are just for organization and clarity. On the top left side of a node, next to the title, you have a small gray dot. If you click it, the node collapses, similar to minimizing it. I often do this for nodes where I already know the settings and do not need to change them. Collapsing nodes helps save space and makes the workflow easier to read. If you right-click on a node, you get a menu called the Node Context menu. This menu shows options related to that specific node. Each node has a slightly different menu depending on what that node does. In this case, we have options like opening, saving, and copying the image, different properties, resize, and colors. We can also collapse the node from here instead of using the gray dot, and there are many more options. Try a few of them. If you do not like what you did, you can undo it with Ctrl+Z. You can also change the title of a node. If you double-click on the node title, you can rename it to anything you want. This does not change how the node works at all. It is only for your own organization and to make the workflow easier to understand. You can also right-click on a node and choose Title to rename it. This is another way to change the node name. We already know that we can move a node around once it is selected, but when a node is selected, you will also see a small floating bar at the top. From here, you can delete the node using this icon. You can also click on this dot to change the node color. This lets you choose from different colors, which is useful for organizing your workflow or grouping nodes by function. Changing the color does not affect how the node works. By default, there is no color, the gray one. This small eye icon is the node info. If you click it, a properties panel opens on the right with more information about the node. Here you can see what the node is supposed to do and what the values mean. From this icon, you can also close the Properties panel. All nodes, especially the default Comfy UI nodes, should have some kind of info, unless it is a custom node and the creator did not add any documentation. You can drag this side panel and resize it the way you like. Here you can see all the information about the image crop node and what each setting does. Let us close it for now. If you hover over an icon, you can see more information about what it does. For example, because this node works with images, it lets you open it in the mask editor. If we click on it, you can see that it opens in the mask editor. This will be useful later when we do inpainting and image editing, but that is for another episode. For now, it is enough to know that it is here and you will learn more about it over time. These numbers are just settings that you can change. In Comfy UI, they are called parameters. Parameters control how a node behaves and how it processes its input. Let me reconnect the nodes so we have a working workflow again. Now, if I run it, you can see what these parameters actually do. We are cropping a 512 by 512 pixel area from the original image, starting from the X and Y coordinates set to 0. That means the crop starts from the top left corner of the image. So basically, we are taking this small corner from the original image. The original image was 1024 by 1024 pixels, and now the result is 512 by 512 pixels. Even if it looks bigger here in the node preview, it is not actually larger. That is just the preview size. The real image resolution is smaller. So let us change some parameters, or settings, or however it is easier for you to remember them. Values is also fine, and run it again. Now we have a different crop. Let me speed up the video while I try different values, so you can see how the result changes. Let us remove this middle node, the image crop node. Once it is removed, something interesting happens. Comfy UI tries to keep the workflow connected and automatically reconnects the nodes directly. That happens because the output of the first node and the input of the last node use the same type. If the first and last nodes had different input and output types, the connection would disappear when the middle node is removed. Now let us double-click on the canvas. You should remember by now that every time you see this search bar, it means I double-clicked on the canvas. Let us search for invert and select invert image. This node has an image input and an image output, but it does not have any parameters. That is because this node is designed to do one specific thing: invert the image. Even without parameters, the node still performs a function. Let us connect this node into the workflow. Watch what happens when I connect it to the input. You can see that the previous connection is removed automatically. That is because an input can only have one connection at a time. An output, on the other hand, can connect to multiple nodes. You can think of it like electricity. An output is like a power strip. It can send power to many devices. An input is like a wall socket. It can only accept one plug at a time. If we run the workflow now, we can see that the result is an inverted image. So, until now, with these small workflows, we did not use any AI. We only used simple nodes, like simple code, to modify images. We will see more in the next chapter, when we build a bigger workflow that uses Stable Diffusion to generate an image from text. But these small steps help you understand how things work. At least I hope they do. You can always ask any questions you have on Discord, as we will have a special section for this episode on the Discord forum. So we learned that save image is usually the last node in a workflow, since it does not have any outputs, and because the output is an image that goes to disk, not to another node. But that does not mean we cannot continue the workflow. It only means we cannot continue from that node. We can still continue from the previous node, which has the same image, just not saved to disk yet. Let us clone this node and use it again. One simple way is to press the Alt key and drag a copy of this node where you want it. Let us delete it and try again. Now we will use Ctrl+C to copy, and when I use Ctrl+V, it will paste that node where the mouse cursor is. Let us delete it again, and now let me show you another shortcut. Press the Control key and make a marquee selection over the nodes you want to select. Now we selected 2 nodes. With Ctrl+C, we copy all selected nodes, and with Ctrl+V, we paste them. If you click and drag from any of the selected nodes, you can move them together. If you press Delete while both are selected, it will remove both. If we use Ctrl+Shift+V, it will paste the nodes together with the links they had in the workflow. Now we have this extra link here. So basically, from one image, we got 2 invert image nodes, and both do the same thing, invert the image. If the invert image node had more parameters, we could change the settings in one and get different results. Let us delete those again. Practice this a few times. Press Ctrl and select the nodes, press Ctrl+C to copy, and Ctrl+V to paste. Move them into position. Now look at what I am doing. I am continuing the workflow from the last invert image node, and then I save the result. A workflow can have many branches, like a tree. The root starts with the image, then it inverts the image, and from there, on another branch, it inverts it again. Can you guess what happens when I press Run? The image is inverted again and looks like the normal image. The original image is inverted, then that inverted image is inverted again, and we get the original result. We can continue the workflow even more. From the image that was inverted twice, we connect it to an image crop node. Now, instead of double-clicking and searching for a node, we can drag a connection and release it. When we do that, a context menu appears with suggested nodes. From here, I can easily pick the Save Image node, and it is added already connected. Let us delete it and try again. Drag the connection and release it, then select Search. When I select the Save Image node, it is added already connected. Let us place the nodes properly and run the workflow. You can see how many operations are now in this workflow. With a single image, we can invert it again, crop it, and save it. This is similar to a small program or an action in Photoshop, but with more control and much more flexibility. There are nodes for images, audio, 3D, and many other things. This is where you start to see the power of Comfy UI. Now let us select everything. Hold Ctrl and drag to select all nodes. You can press Delete to remove everything. Or let us cancel that and do it another way. Go to the menu, then Edit, and choose Clear Workflow. It will ask if you want to clear it. Click OK, and now we have a blank workflow again. Do you like math? I know you do not like it, but I just want to show something quick to see the different things it can do and help you understand Comfy UI better. Double-click on the canvas and search for math. You will see a few math nodes. If we look on the right, you can see different names like Comfy UI Core, KJ Nodes, Easy Use. These names are the names of custom nodes or extensions. By default, Comfy UI comes only with the nodes you see under Comfy UI Core. With the Easy Installer, you also get a few extra custom nodes already installed. We will talk more about custom nodes later when we get to the manager. If you use the Easy Installer like I showed at the beginning of this video and install the same version, you should have the same nodes. So again, Comfy UI core nodes are made by the Comfy UI team. Let us get back to the math nodes. We will start with something simple, called math int. Int comes from the word integer, which means whole numbers. This node works only with whole numbers, like 1, 2, 10, and so on, not decimals. All custom nodes have an extra label on the top right that shows which custom node pack they belong to. This makes them easy to spot compared to built-in nodes. These math nodes are used for simple calculations, similar to a calculator. I personally do not use math nodes very often, but they can be very useful for automation. For example, you might load an image, read its width or height, and then use math nodes to calculate a new value based on that size. This allows you to automatically adjust things like resolution without manually changing numbers every time. In this case, we have letter A, letter B, and an operation. The default operation is add. Let us set A to 5 and B to 3. For the operation, we will leave it on add for now. Let us add another node that I use often, called preview as text. You can see it comes with Comfy UI. This is one of those special nodes I mentioned earlier that can be connected to almost anything. Even if other nodes cannot connect directly, this node will convert the value to text and display it. If I run the workflow, you can see the result. Even though they look the same, one is actually a number and the other is a text display of that number. This makes more sense if you have coding experience, but we will not get into technical details here. What is important to remember is that we can use this node to see a result as text. It also has options for how the preview is displayed. Let us move this node down and make a copy of the mathint node. Now remember, we have a result in this node, but it is not visible unless we use a node to preview or save it. Here is something interesting. We do not see any inputs on this node, but when we drag a link to it, 2 input dots appear. This means we can actually connect values directly to these fields. You will see this behavior with many nodes that have number fields or text fields. We can copy a value from an output and feed it into these fields to use it in the workflow. Notice how the field for letter A is grayed out. That means it is no longer using a manual value. Instead, it is taking the value from the previous node, which is 8. Now let us change the operation to multiply. We now have 8 multiplied by 3. Let us add another preview as text node to see the result. When we run it, the result is 24, as expected. Let us remove that preview node and arrange the layout. This small workflow does something simple. It adds 2 numbers, and then the result is multiplied by 3. That 3 could also come from another node, and so on, until you build more complex workflows. If I change the value to 4 and run it again, we get the correct result for that formula. I hope this was not too much math. Now let us select the middle node that does the multiplication and right-click on it. We have a function called bypass. When we enable bypass, the node is temporarily ignored, as if it is not part of the workflow. By the way, you can also access bypass quickly from this icon when the node is selected. Now if I run the workflow, you can see it ignored that node and only did the addition. If I enable it again and run the workflow, it takes that node into account again. You can see that the node changes color and becomes purple and semi-transparent. This visual change tells us that the node is deactivated. Bypassing a node is useful when you want to test a workflow without removing the node completely. Hold the Control key and select all 3 nodes. Now, if we right-click on an empty area of the canvas, we have the option to add a group. If we choose Add Group, it will create an empty group. But since we already selected the nodes, it is better to choose Add Group for selected nodes. This creates a group that contains all those nodes. You can think of a group like a folder that holds multiple nodes together. One very important thing to remember is that if you want to move the group with all the nodes inside, you need to drag it using the group's top bar. If you select and move an individual node, it will move outside of the group. Groups can also be resized. You can see a small triangle in the corner that lets you change the size of the group. If you right-click on a group, you also have the option to bypass all the nodes inside it. This is very useful when you have multiple workflows on the same canvas. For example, you can deactivate one workflow and enable another, so only one workflow runs at a time. This becomes important as workflows get more complex and models get larger, because running multiple workflows at once can require more resources than your system can handle. If you double-click on the group title, you can change the group name. Enough with math. Let us work a little with text as well. When we use AI, we give it prompts, and sometimes it helps to combine text from different sources to get a better prompt. Now I am searching for concat, and you can see that there are multiple nodes with similar names. That is because concatenate is a general concept, and it exists for different data types. This one here, concatenate, works with strings, which means text. It simply takes multiple pieces of text and joins them together into a single string. That is why I added this cat made from multiple pieces joined together, to make it easier to remember. Even if you search for cat, you can easily find the concatenate node. Let us add it to the canvas. For example, for string A, I add the word home, and for string B, the word car. When I connect them, the output becomes a single piece of text, a string. Let us drag a connection from that string and search for a node that can preview it. We can use the same preview as text node again. Now, because the first workflow is bypassed, it will only run this workflow with concatenate. You can see how it joined those two words, first home, then car. We can also use a delimiter. For example, I can add a space here and run it again. Now the result has a space between the words. Or I can add a comma and a space, and now the result looks like proper text with separation. Let us move this node down and hold Alt and drag a copy of the concatenate node. You can move nodes around to make room so the connections are easier to see. Here we have these text fields, and like you saw with the math nodes, we can connect outputs directly into these fields if they are the same type. When I drag a link from the string output, you will see input dots appear, showing that I can connect there. I can connect to the first field, the second field, or even the delimiter. Let us connect it to the first field. So now the home and car result becomes the first input, and for the second field, let us add the word flower. I will hold Alt again and drag another duplicate since that is faster. Then I connect it. Can you guess the result? We now get home, car, and flower. So basically, this is how people create workflows. You connect nodes like Lego pieces. Some nodes can be connected together because they share the same input and output types, and you get a result. Over time, you can build more complex workflows that can save you a lot of time. Let's add another node. Double-click on the canvas and search for primitive. This node is called primitive because it represents the most basic types of values. Things like numbers, text, and true or false values are considered primitive values. The primitive node is used to manually create a value inside Comfy UI instead of getting it from another node. You can use it to type in a number, write some text, or define a simple value that can then be connected to other nodes. Think of it like writing a value by hand and injecting it into the workflow. You can see here it says connect to the widget input, so we can drag a link from there. Now you can see we have a lot of inputs where we can connect this value. If we look at this text, notice what happens when the connection is complete. It changes to the type of value that was connected, a string. Now we can manually insert any text value there. When we run the workflow, the result will include that value. This is useful because sometimes you want to use the same value in multiple nodes. Instead of typing it manually each time, you add a primitive value once and connect it to all the inputs that need it. Let us right-click on this group. Usually, nodes have a bypass option to disable or enable them, but for groups, this option is called Set Group Nodes to Always. Now the nodes inside the group are enabled and we can run that workflow if we want. Let us add another primitive node to see how it adapts. Last time, when we connected a primitive node to a text field, it automatically converted the value into a string because that input expected text. Now, if we connect a primitive node to a math int node, it adapts differently. This time, it is converted into an integer value. You can see that now we can only enter numbers. It does not allow text, because this node expects an integer. Right now, the value is set to 5. Let me resize the node so we can see it better. You can clearly see that this one is an int, and the other one is a string. If we change this number and run the workflow, Comfy UI will rerun all the workflows on the canvas using the new values. In this simple example, it runs almost instantly. But later, when we use larger models, you will see that some workflows can take minutes to generate instead of seconds. So if you look at all the nodes in these workflows, you can clearly see that we use this easy-use custom node, and all the rest do not have that label. That means they come with Comfy UI by default. Let us go to the menu, then Edit, and choose Clear Workflow. Now I want to do a quick recap, just to make sure you assimilated some of the basics. We double-click on the canvas to bring up this search option so we can search for nodes. You type a word to search, like load, and then you can select a node, for example, the Load Image node. This node is used to load an image from your computer. If we click Choose File to load, we can navigate our computer and load an image. By the way, I asked Evo to include some images for this first episode in the input folder so you can have the same images I am using. The path is Comfy UI Easy Install, Comfy UI Input. Let us say I select this helmet, but it can be any image. We can choose Open, or we can double-click on the image and it will open. Now that the image is loaded, let us add another node, the Image Crop node, and connect it from left to right, from output to input. To remove a connection, you just drag from the output and release it somewhere on the canvas. It is like unplugging a cable and leaving it on the floor. Let us redo the connection. You can also click on the small dot in the middle of the connection and choose Delete, and it does the same thing as unplugging. Let us connect it again. We can hold Control and select multiple nodes by dragging with the left mouse button pressed. This lets us select multiple nodes at once. You can also hold Control and click on the nodes one by one. If you select a node by mistake, just click on it again to deselect it. Once nodes are selected, we can move them together. If you plan to move them a lot, you can also add them to a group. If you click on the canvas and drag, you are moving the canvas itself. This is useful when you have long workflows and want to see different parts of the workflow. Let us move these nodes to the left. Now double-click on the canvas and add a node called Preview. This time it is not Preview as text. We could add that too, but it would show numbers. Here we add Preview Image. This node is similar to Save Image, but it does not save the image in the output folder. It is useful when you just want to preview parts of a workflow and do not need to save the image. If you like the image, you can still save it. You can right-click on the image and choose Save Image, then save it anywhere you want on your hard disk. Let us cancel that and remove the Preview Image node. This time, let us add a Save Image node so we can save the result and then run the workflow again. Now the result is saved. Let us go to the desktop. The Easy Installer comes with a shortcut to the output folder. We double-click on it, and now we are in the output folder. You can see the path at the top. Here you can see all the images generated with Comfy UI. These images are saved in this folder. You can delete them, move them to different folders, or organize them however you want. I usually pick the images I need, move them into the project folder, and then delete the rest, because over time you will end up with thousands of images here. We can see the helmet image we just generated, but not the previous one from the Preview Image node. If we go back one folder to the main Comfy UI folder, we can see a temp folder. Comfy UI uses this folder to store preview images temporarily. The contents of this temp folder are deleted when you start Comfy UI again. So you can still recover preview images even if you did not save them right away, as long as you did not close Comfy UI yet. We can collapse a node using the top left gray dot and click it again to expand it. Once a node is selected, it has multiple options at the top. One very useful option is the info icon, which gives you more information about the node. You can close the properties panel from here. We can change the color of the node, and this symbol here is for subgraphs. Subgraphs are a bit more complex, so maybe in a later chapter or another episode we will talk more about them. This arrow lets you bypass the node, and if you click on these dots, it shows even more options for the node. For example, you can change the shape, change the color, or pin the node so it is fixed and cannot be moved. If we move these nodes apart to see the links, we can also hide the links from here. Be careful with that, because it can look like no nodes are connected. I never use this option, because I like to see how nodes are connected. It helps me understand the workflow better. If you do not like how the links look, there are ways to change their shape. I like the default look, but some people prefer other options. If we go to the bottom left or open the menu and go to Settings, we can change this. Let us click on Settings. Here we have many settings we can change. Let us search for Link, since we want to change how links are displayed. You can see the current one is called Spline under Link Render Mode. If we change it from Spline to Straight and close the settings, you can see the links are now straight, but they still adapt when you move the nodes. Let us go to Settings again and change it to Linear. Now the links are always straight lines. Let us change it back to the default, which is Spline. Now let us remove all the nodes. I personally prefer the spline view because it reminds me of sci-fi scenes with lots of cables hanging around. Let us double-click on the canvas and add a load image node again. Now let us add another node and search for upscale image. We will select the node called upscale image by and move it closer so we do not waste space on the canvas. Then we connect it to the workflow and add a save image node at the end so we have a complete workflow. If we run this now, we get the same image as before. That happens because some nodes have default values that do not change anything. They only start doing something once you change their parameters. In this case, the upscale value is set to 1. Scaling by 1 is like multiplying a number by 1, you get the same result. Now let us increase the scale by value to 2. When we run it again, the image is upscaled by 2 times, so we get double the resolution. This is similar to resizing an image in Photoshop. In this case, it does not use AI to add new detail, it simply enlarges the image. These upscale methods are different ways of resizing an image. Nearest exact copies pixels exactly, so it is very fast and keeps hard edges, but it can look blocky. Bilinear smooths pixels together, giving a softer result that can look slightly blurry. Area is mainly meant for downscaling and is not ideal for upscaling images. Bicubic uses more surrounding pixels to produce smoother and better looking results. Lanczos preserves detail and sharpness the best, but it is slower than the others. Let us say you do a lot of changes to a node, like titles, values, and colors, and you forget how the default values were. You can add the same node again and redo all the values and connections, or you can right-click on the node and choose Fix Node, Recreate. If you select that, the node goes back to its default state. If you right-click again, you also have the option to clone the node and move that clone wherever you want. You can also do this faster by holding Alt and dragging the node. You can remove a node from this menu, but pressing the Delete key is faster. We also have this pin option. If you use it, a pin appears at the top of the node, and now if you click and drag, the node does not move. It is pinned to the canvas. To move it again, you need to right-click and select Unpin. Sometimes, when you get workflows from the internet, some people stack many nodes on top of each other and pin them. It can look like there are only 2 nodes, even if there are 10 nodes behind one. I do not recommend doing this. If you do not want people to use your workflow, just do not share it. We also saw that we need to change values on some nodes for them to work. If we bypass a node, the workflow still runs and ignores that node. The links are still there, and the connection passes through the node. This is important, because there is another mode where the connection does not pass through. Let us enable the node again using bypass. Now right-click on it and go to Mode. You will see the option Always, which means the node is active. There is also an option called Never. This mutes the node and makes it behave as if it does not exist. You can see that the node is now gray, not purple like bypass. When we run the workflow, we get an error. That is because the node is not passing anything through, so the next node does not receive the image it expects. It is like cutting the cable where that node was. Let us remove that node and delete the link as well. If we run the workflow again, the result is the same. The image is missing because there is no connection. Let us go to the menu, then Edit, and click Undo. You can also use Ctrl+Z multiple times until you get back to the state you want. I will undo until everything is active again. Let us zoom out with the mouse wheel and add a group. Name your group in a way that explains what the nodes do. Do not name it something generic like My Group. You can move the group around, and you will notice that it works like a magnet. If a node is inside the group area, it stays inside. Let us make the group larger and move it around so you can see that nodes are sticking to it. Now adjust the group size and move the nodes so it looks cleaner. Workflows can get quite large, so I like to optimize the space to make them easier to read and navigate. Once the nodes are positioned, hold Ctrl and select all the nodes. You will see that only the nodes are selected, not the group. Now right-click and choose Fit Group to Nodes. The group will resize to fit the nodes tightly. Now we can move the group, and it does not take much space. Groups can have more options, especially when using custom nodes like RG3. If we go to Settings in Comfy UI, we have General Settings, but we also have settings for custom nodes. For example, for RG3, we have extra settings here. I can click this button to open them. RG3 is installed when you use the Easy Installer. If you install Comfy UI manually, you need to install RG3 from the manager. We will talk more about custom nodes later. You can also access the same RG3 settings directly from here, which is faster. If we scroll down, we have settings for groups. For example, there is an option called Show Fast Group Toggles in Group Headers. Let us enable it. You can choose when to show it, always, or on hover. I will leave it on hover and save the settings. Now, when I hover over the group, you can see extra buttons in the top right. From here, we can bypass all the nodes in the group easily. We also have an option to mute the group. This is similar to setting nodes to never. When a group is muted, the nodes inside it do not run at all, and the workflow behaves as if they do not exist. Bypass still lets the workflow run through the nodes, mute does not. Let us make the group active again. We can also run the workflow using the play button on the group. We can change values, for example, use smaller values to get a smaller image, maybe half the size. There are many more things you can do with groups and switch style nodes, but we will cover those in later episodes. I told you at the beginning to leave the Nodes to option turned off. At the moment of this recording, it is still in beta and has some bugs. Maybe over time they will fix everything and it will become stable. If I activate it, you can see that it changes how the nodes look. For most nodes, things still work in a similar way, but this change exists so they can add more functionality to nodes. With the current system they use, there are limitations in what nodes can do, and the new node version should give them more possibilities to build better nodes. Instead of the gray dot, you get an arrow that points down and then to the right when the node is collapsed. The inputs are placed on the edge of the node, and some nodes have more options. For example, in Load Image, you can see previews of images from the input folder, and you can also browse for another image on your disk. However, for older workflows, this can slightly change node sizes and mess up the layout. Some nodes might not work yet until the node creators update them. Because of that, until everything is fixed and stable, I recommend leaving Nodes 2 turned off. Just a quick reminder that from mode, you can mute a node by setting it to never. This is useful when a workflow is big and has a lot of branches. You can mute a branch of that workflow, and it will still run without errors, as long as there are no nodes after the muted ones that expect an input. To turn the node back on, you go to Mode and choose Always. We also have shape options for nodes, but these are only decorative. They just change the corners of the node. By default, the corners are rounded. There is also the card option, which rounds only 2 corners. Personally, I do not think it is worth spending much time on this. To remove a group, you can select it and press the Delete key, or you can right-click on it, choose Edit Group, and then Remove. This only removes the group container, not the nodes inside it, unlike folders in other systems. Let us select these 2 nodes while holding Control and press Delete to remove them. Then add an image crop node and connect the link to it. After that, let us add a preview image node, since we are only testing. With these settings, we get a crop from the top left corner of the image. Let us arrange the nodes, then hold Ctrl, select both nodes, and press Ctrl plus C to copy, and then plus Shift plus V to paste them with the links. Since we have them copied, let us paste again to get a third branch. Right now, all the settings are the same, so all three give the same result. We can change the x-coordinate on one to get the bottom right corner of the image. For another one, let us change the y-coordinate to get the bottom left corner. Now when we run it, we split the image into 3 pieces. You could add another one for the bottom right corner to get the missing part. That is homework for you, to figure out the correct coordinates. Now, if we change the input image and run it again, you can see how useful this can be. In a later episode, we will learn how to load multiple images from a folder and automate this process, so we can apply it to all images in a folder. Now select all the nodes in the workflow using the shortcut Ctrl plus A, and then press Delete to remove everything. It is time for another short break. This has been a long chapter, and I want to make sure you have time to absorb the information. Take a few minutes, press pause, get a drink, or step away from the screen, and then come back. Now, I do not know what learning method works best for you, but I can tell you one method that usually works very well for video tutorials. First, watch the entire tutorial from start to finish, without stopping too much. This helps you build a general understanding of what is possible and how things fit together. Then, watch it a second time, pause the video, and follow along step by step inside Comfy UI. After that, try to repeat the same steps without the tutorial playing, just from memory. Once you are comfortable, start experimenting. Try changing nodes, parameters, or settings that were not covered in the tutorial. And if something does not work or you get stuck, that is completely normal. You can always go back to the tutorial, re-watch a part, or ask questions on Discord. Learning Comfy UI is not about speed. It is about understanding.